research. I'm Lisa Aligas, and this is Newsmakers. In this edition, we introduce you to two new labs on the Missouri Southern State University campus, providing an immersive learning environment for kinesiology and physiology students to work with athletes and community members for improved mobility. We begin our conversation with the chair of the kinesiology department, Dr. Andrea Cullors, and exercise science program coordinator and founder director of the Applied Suspension Training Research Laboratory, our ASTRA laboratory, Dr. Rosam Alismar. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is really exciting. These are such neat labs. We want to talk about this. Dr. Cullors, you had a ribbon cutting recently. It was held to show off the labs to the MSSU community, but they've been operating for research purposes much of the year, and one is the ASTRA lab, so the other is the DARI lab. Where did you all come up with the ideas for these labs, and give us an idea of what these acronyms mean?
Right, so about 3 years ago or so, when we interviewed Dr. Alismar, he told us about his areas of research and interest and in what he would want if he came to Missouri Southern. So I guess I set out then, like, how do we make the ASTRA lab come to fruition? And so we've worked the past several years making that happen, renovating a classroom space into this lab space. And until the lab space was open, they actually were using the rec center for a lot of this research, which was interesting. And then the DARI lab, which you'll talk with Dr. Tice with later, is it was really his idea as well. Technology is moving and improving rapidly when we look at capturing motion of people, and so this is the latest technology, and when he found that this was available and how it would really help our students with learning in the classroom and then with student research, we explored it and were able to get that this past year as well.
Excellent. So we're going to talk more about the DARI lab in our second segment, but Dr. Alismar, the Applied Suspension Training Research Lab, or ASTRA lab, is based around a piece of equipment, and it's called the Pendle. We're going to hear from its creator a little later in a video segment, but what brought you to this equipment? How did you discover it, and what are the theories behind how this works?
While I was doing my dissertation and my PhD, I was looking for a project that is unique and different. And if you do believe in universe, I think that's what happened. I ran into Framaro Perez, who's the creator of the Pendle, at a party when a friend of mine had said, "This is the person you need to speak to." He was looking for someone to explore its app. He just created the device, and he wanted to see how it would apply into fitness or even rehab. So here I am. I'm looking for an apparatus or a project or some sort of idea that I could maybe explore its application. And he was looking for a platform or a university to do that. And we just joined venture, invited my dissertation advisor at that time, and we explored its training effect for 8 weeks on people with low back pain. And mostly they were dancers, and we also not only measured their low back pain after the 8 weeks, but also we measured hip flexion and extension as far as range of motion, if it would have any effect on that as well. Strength in the leg and the back strength as far as fitness component, and also balance. And that's what we found. There was a statistical significant difference in the improvement in reducing low back pain after the 8-week training on the Pendle, also increasing the range of motion. And strength in the leg and the back. And I'm sorry, I also forgot, we also measured sit-to-stand power, and they also show an increase in sit-to-stand power. The only thing that we did not find significant difference is the balance, and that contributes to the nervous system, because usually the nervous system does take more time than the 8 weeks, maybe more than 12 or 24 weeks to start to see some sort of results with balance. But other than that, the muscular strength did improve, and the flexibility as well within that time frame, which is recommended by the American College of Sports Medicine, 8 weeks to 12 weeks.
8 to 12 weeks. So let's talk about this apparatus. When you view someone on the Pendle, it looks like a combination of a trapeze and aerial silks like used by the singer Pink. Physiologically, though, why does this work? Like, why is suspension helpful?
Sure. So so the reason that we are trying to explore the actual apparatus, if you look at it, we look at the component of fitness, just to go back in ideas. It's basic down to health-related fitness component as well as skill-related fitness component, and those are measured through body composition, muscular strength and endurance, flexibility, as well as cardiovascular endurance. And then we look at the skill-related, which such as agility, reaction time, speed, power, coordination, and balance. So when we look at the body, we try to kind of discover or try to analyze the body from those 11 components of fitness. Now, what we try to do is to take traditional workout from the ground and ask a person to be suspended fully in air and mimic every movement that is done, such as a squat, leg press, leg extension or hip extension, or leg flexion or hip flexion. But now you're doing it suspended fully in air and try to sustain the oscillation or the swinging motion to keep it in balance, as well as because there's a swivel ground, so it might allow you to also spin. So this can increase the amount of stabilizer muscles to be engaged. And by based on the National Academy of Sports Medicine, they divided the body into 3 systems, and we're trying to target 2 systems out of the 3. The third system, which what we call the movement system, and that's what most athletes and people focus on, which are quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, pectoralis, back, bicep, tricep, and those are what we train for, but we neglect the other 2 systems. What we call is the global and the local. The local technically are those muscles that are tied intrinsically inside your body, and it starts with your pelvic floor muscles and your diaphragm, which is accessory to allow you to breathe through an exercise, and we neglect how to train those muscles.
So do you use those more by being suspended as opposed to doing the same exercises standing?
Absolutely. And then the second system after that are those muscles that are connected from the spine to the pelvic and from the pelvic to the femur, and those called the global muscles. That's what we call the lumbopelvic hip complex. And it's seldom that people focus on training them. They focus mainly on the movement aspects of it. So when I get students that are athletes in my classes, such as corrective exercise or strength training, and I start to dive into some sort of assessment movement, they struggle with those 2, local and global, because they're so good at the movement, neglecting those 2. So what we do is we try to explore the pendule application by allowing the body to be fully suspended without the person really being able to think about it, forcing those local and global to engage while they're trying to stabilize their movement and oscillation, making or mimicking those traditional movement on the ground, because that's what we're used to when we're born, standing on the ground and mimicking.
It's a different environment.
It is a different environment, But so that's from a muscular system. The other type is we also focus on the nervous system, which is the neuromuscular, which are the the integration of the 2. And there are 2 receptors that we look for as well. The proprioceptors, which is the awareness of the body in space. So the minute that you are on a pendule, your awareness in space and also the orientation is going to change and shift. So you're going to start to trigger other side of that nervous system to balance and stabilize yourself, like a survival mode. The other 2 receptors are the mechanoreceptors, one that is in charge of the stretch, the other one is in charge of the tension, what we call the Golgi tendon organ. That is, those are those are nerves that are attached to the tendon side of the structure of the muscle, while as the muscle spindles are attached to the muscle fiber. The muscle spindles are in charge or detect overstretch, while as the GTO are in charge of the over tension. And together, when you're on the pendule, you're constantly fighting between those 2, tension, stretch, over tension. So you're engaging those and firing up those nerves, mechanoreceptors, along with the proprioceptors and the vestibular as well, that will allow you to kind of just get that balance in space. So engaging your stabilizer muscles, the local and the global, along with the nervous system with those receptors, together we try to explore its benefit and application in multiple areas, not only in fitness, but also in rehab. And we can talk about those maybe at a later time.
Dr. Cole, you had grants that help pay for this. Tell us briefly about those.
Yeah, so with the Astor Lab, we used program fees, Lion fees that our department has obtained, and then the university has immersive learning grants and technology fee grants, and we applied for those as well, and those help support the Dari Lab. So we're very glad that the university had some funding available to help us pursue and to renovate these spaces for our students.
And briefly, if we can, what are some of the other applications besides athletics? I mean, you've discovered that this can work with autism and some other fields.
Yeah, well, it's not about this. In a way, I stumbled onto this accidentally. In fact, the pendule we were like, we were trying it out at a gym, and then a mother came with her child, and she asked if her child could use the pendulum, and we allowed the child to play with it with, of course, supervision and so forth. And then every time the child would step on it, you'd go back and try it again. And then the mother later on came and asked, my son is on the autism spectrum, and for some reason, he's calmer and he's liking it. So what we thought about is maybe the actual rocking motion sometimes, and not for, because we also, autism is outside my scope of expertise, where I need to work with a specialized person. But I think with that motion of the rocking motion or the swinging motion, it has some sort of calming sensation for autism.
We have more to talk about. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will be joined by Connor Tice to discuss the Dari Lab and the impact for athletics. But first, up close and personal with the Pendle creator.
From Mauro Fortitz Perez demonstrates the Pendle. He looks like he's playing, but the device he created was born out of pain.
I was struggling with immobility and pain due to a stationary lifestyle of sitting behind a computer, working my corporate job. I'm an athlete, I've studied martial arts, I dance, I've been in a lot of different sports, and I've injured myself many times. Behind a computer was my worst injury. That was the worst injury, and it was the worst to recover from, because I'd never had atrophy, I'd only had actual injuries.
So he turned to his experience with martial arts and realized he needed range of motion for all his joints, and found that through suspension.
It started with a pulley that I tied my foot to, and just this idea flooded me that I needed to suspend my body by my feet, which is not something that existed. I couldn't find it on the market, so I started building it. And I got that extended range of motion by doing it in a semi-altered gravity state, floating in the air without the ground interfering and without the possibility of falling.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are learning about the latest immersive learning opportunities at MSSU through the Aster and Dari research labs. Joining our conversation are Dr. Connor Tice, Assistant Professor of the Kinesiology Physiology Department, and back with us again is Dr. Rossam Al-Asmar, Director of the Aster Lab. Thank you both for being here.
Sure, absolutely.
This is so exciting. Dr. Tice, you founded the Dynamic Athletic Research Institute, our Dari Lab, which features a 3D motion analysis system of cameras and a computer. Explain for us the components and how this is set up to actually measure and gather data.
Firstly, it's a cloud-based system. It uses a proprietary data to capture joint range of motion, whether it's athletically or it's just a regular person coming in, okay? Uses a system of cameras that wrap a room anywhere from a 10 by 10 to a basketball court.
Wow.
Allowing me to get joint range of motion, balance, postural sway in real time, okay, with no markers. And it allows me to do that all day off one calibration. Okay, so it's cloud-based, really powerful stuff. So someone could come in to get diagnosed with an injury, or they just want to figure out how their joints are working as a result. So that system offers all of that as well. So
What exactly are we assessing when we get this data? I mean, and you know, because I actually went through it, and you were like, hey, they told me, oh, this ankle takes less stress or more stress than the other one.
yeah. So for a long time, what we used to assess what's called joint range of motion is something simple like my little goniometer here. Just a plastic device that marks the joint center and allows us to get joint angle change, right, as it were. Then the cameras changed, and we put these little markers on the skin, and of course allowed us to adhese them to you to get the same idea.
So no markers needed.
None at all. You walk in your regular clothes, and what this does is it assesses the joint, the limb length, but also the joint center, and allows us to get degrees of motion change. Let's say I'm doing an elbow flexion. It gives me the full degree motion change in real time, all of the joints at one time, without any markers placed on you at all. It's seamless in that way. I can get an entire team done in one time throughout a full day, versus before I'd have to calibrate in between each session and then stick markers on each person. So it allows us to assess that.
Is it working for all sports? I know you had mentioned the other day it's hard to catch a baseball throwing because it's the speed of it, but
right now,
but you're figuring that out?
This is really for all people. This could be for average Joes that want to come in. It was built as an athlete assessment tool. So jumping, running, throwing, hitting, bouncing a basketball, going up for a layup. What I meant by that camera speed is you have to have the right package to get like a pitcher's arm. It's so fast.
Right.
But I could get anything up to running and jumping, slower throws, squatting, those type things. So it's really how functional that athlete's joints are, and if they have an injury, how bad the injury is and how it's impacting joint ROM.
And
it's a diagnostic tool, really.
And so let's talk about that as a diagnostic tool. So then what kind of things can you recommend, and how can that be then maybe approached with the Pendle to work together to like have some rehab, and then do you remeasure?
We do. Biggest thing that happens with some disorders like shoulder pain or low back pain is limited range of motion, and that can impact functional movements that are called activities of daily living, in which we forget about that aspect of life, getting up from a chair.
Putting that can up into the higher shelves of
Putting
your
on
pantry.
a pair of pants, right? Getting the groceries in and out of the car.
Yeah.
Putting a belt on, combing your hair. You lose those, especially as pain gets worse and worse. So what we would really do is bring them in for an initial assessment to see how bad the joint ROM is lost in that joint. Have them do something like the Pendle device, then remeasure them to see how much more functional the joint is. Not just compared to someone else who's healthy, but to yourself. Do you have an asymmetry from one side to the other? Okay, so how functional are each side? Because you can overuse one joint to save another. That's a big concern with that. But also, that allows us to measure how impactful a therapy is.
Yeah. So Dr. Ellsmar, then how does that data help you know what approach to give them on the Pendle?
Well, we start with the baseline measurement first from the DARI, or for that matter. And then what we do, we target what we call is we reverse engineer the process going to the joints. What we call is the osteokinematic motion. Every joint goes through a range of motion with a plane of action, meaning that flexion, extension, adduction, abduction. Then from there, we see what muscles are trying to contribute with that motion. And if the DARI tells us these are the group of muscles or the motion of the joint that is having difficulty to make or execute that movement, then what we do, we take those movements and try to mimic them on the the Pendle. So we have identified about 80 different variation of exercises on the Pendle, and we had increased 20 to 30 more this past week because they went through a patent process in 2026 and added more accessory to the Pendle machine. So now we even have more exercises or movement that we can do on the Pendle. So what we do is we try to target those joints on the muscles, and hope after 8 weeks or 6 weeks, or 8 weeks or 12 weeks of rehab, we go back and do post-assessment. And then what we see, if there's any improvement, then probably the intervention did work. If not, then we'll try to go back and understand why not.
Yeah. So, and then what are the potential uses for the DARI?
So outside of just shoulder pain, keep in mind it's a full body device. Top of the head to the bottom of your feet. Even something simple like a frailty study with balance. Balance is a very important measure for health and overall function. Something that I would really like to do with the DARI is take people that are struggling with postural sway and balance. Most of us go about 13 millimeters this way and 9 this way. Okay, you don't see that with the naked eye. People that have excessive sway are indicative they have a problem with falls. So if we're able to do a therapy with them to get them stronger, the DARI is going to be able to track how functional that person is. So really, it's return to function for a special population or return to play in an athlete. I really want to use it as a diagnostic tool to more efficaciously take care of athletes, but also the general population.
And certainly in the community, if you can prevent falls, that prevents some people from in the nursing homes. Great information. Thank you both for being here. We're going to talk to students next.
Cool.
We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we will visit with students who have done research projects using both labs. Don't go away.
I learn best by doing.
I enjoy helping others.
I want to leave my mark.
Here, I discovered what I can do and who I can become.
What begins on this campus moves into studios, hospitals, and communities around the globe.
This is Missouri Southern State University.
Explore boldly.
Care deeply.
Impact globally.
One expanded mission built with lion pride.
Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are exploring the benefits of the Astor and DARI labs in use at the kinesiology department and by students for research projects. Joining our conversation for the student viewpoint are Isha Alam, Fatima Ahmed, and Caleb Thomas. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you. We're
Thanks for
super
being
happy to be here.
You all got to do research projects, some as teams together. Tell us how that worked, and tell me your area of study and what research you did utilizing these labs. Isha?
Of course, yeah. So I'm Isha. I'm a biomedical sciences student. I'm here in the MQ program at Missouri Southern. I am a pre-med student, so we'll be heading to med school soon. This project was basically coming out of my experience shadowing orthopedic surgeon at Freeman, and he was amazing, Dr. Todd Twist, and he really inspired me to learn more about shoulder pain, the shoulder joint, and so I took a proposal up to Dr. Alice Marr about a project relating to shoulder pain, and then he had a whole inaugural team, which included all of us, and so we all decided to band together on this project.
That's great. So talk to me about what did you find interesting about the information you gathered? Fatima, like, you did have to do some basic analysis of how people were moving. What did you find interesting about how you did that with the DARI lab?
I think with the DARI, it was a bit of a learning curve in the beginning to learn like how the software and algorithm worked. But once you got it, it's actually a really cool device and a really cool tool that really gives you insightful information on what people's health score looks like and how active they are.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you actually see, hey, that joint, you're landing on that leg differently than other ones? What is it? Can you give us an idea of what we might see?
So the way it works is that it kind of measures the range of motion in in the joint that you might have, so you can see how bilateral it is from both sides, depending on the right versus the left side of your body.
Yeah. Data collection is an important part of this research, and how much of this learning experience was putting your research skills to work? Because it was a project for you guys.
It was really, most of it was research skill oriented, but compared to I'll compare our first and second phases. So during our first phase, we were very organized. However, there were some hiccups along the way, and we adjusted them in our second phase. Now, Isha put together a Google Sheet of all the participants and what specific day they were going to go to the Pendle or the DARI. And that was very helpful because it showed us literally when we needed to be at the Pendle, when the participant needed to be there, how many days we had left. I had one participant this semester, they were unavailable during spring break, and they'd had 2 weeks off because they were out of the country. And specifically here, if we didn't have that Google Sheet, we would be lost because I'd be like, how many hours do you have left? Because our participants needed 400 hours on the Pendle. So it needed meticulous organization. And also we collected pre, post, and mid cortisol samples. And we collected an AM and a PM sample each time. So this semester, I have in the freezer in Reynolds Hall, there's 3 bags, and it's a pre, post, and mid. And I am very organized in where I'm putting those samples so that we know really where they are and when we took them and where we're putting them.
There's a lot of details to doing research, a lot of check boxes you have to check. What did the DARI data help you understand about using the Pendle? What kind of information did it give you?
Absolutely. So I would say pre-post is what we did the DARI, right? So every participant, control or experimental, did a pre-DARI and then a post, and we did the readiness health review. So that's the part of the DARI that we used, the assessment that we used. And the post, really, we could compare it to the pre, and it gives us very specific scores, like Fatima said. So it gives you literally exactly the amount of degrees that your joint moves. So it uses that imaging system and approximates your joint center. And like Dr. Tice must have said, it tells you the exact degrees of freedom of your joint. It will tell you if your joint compares to the normal population in the United States. So people of your age, race, ethnicity, stuff like that. It's really, really cool, very specific in that manner. So it really helped us accurately say that, our participants' joint, shoulder, right, shoulder improved by blank degrees of freedom. Or the Delta score was 12, meaning that they improved in mobility.
So do you feel like you had results to share with those people, and did you see improvement? What kind of results did you get, Fatima?
So after analyzing our results, we did see so our sample size was very small. So when we ran those statistic tests, we did see that there was no significant difference between our pre and post, but we just think that's because our sample size was so small. But within our data samples itself, we did see that within the DARI scores itself, that the range of motion between people who did use the DARI did significantly like increase in their range of motion, but people who didn't, they either like stayed kind of the same or decreased a little bit.
So, and then what was the biggest benefit for each of you when it comes to a real world level hands-on exercise like this? I mean, how do you think this prepares you? Does it prepare you for grad school? Does it prepare you for working in the, clinical situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first thing is it teaches us exposure, right, with patients. So they're not patients right now, they're participants, but eventually they'll become patients for all three of us. We're all pre-med. So like Caleb said, learning how to deal with these, participants, you're in charge of them, you're in charge of their safety, communicating with them, learning the nonverbal, body language, learning how to recognize that. As well as how to deal with hiccups when you have hiccups with scheduling, right? That's a very common thing in healthcare. So definitely from like the soft skills perspective, and then obviously all the research skills come with it, the analysis, t-testing, and whatnot.
Yeah. What do you feel like is your biggest takeaway from doing this research?
I think for me, it's just honing in on my observation skills, improving on those, because specifically, like, I'm going to be a doctor in the future, hopefully. And I think that just like having a participant there, you have to be in charge of them, like see what like they're doing, and you have to like be aware of like their movements at all time. So I think just like that's kind of the basic of what a diagnosis is when you're a doctor too as well. Just being able to observe like all the little details and put together like a complete overview.
Yeah, for you, Caleb?
Yeah, for me, really the communication with the patient and being able to tell them why I'm doing what I'm doing and what will the effect and the benefit be. I had one participant when I first started, it was kind of funny, but like I handed them like a cortisol tube and I'm like, put this in your mouth. And she was like, why? And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Because like I had to sit down and explain, like, this is to track your cortisol. It has to do with your stress levels, and we hope to see a reduction in stress over the experiment. So really explaining to people why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that'll be so important for when I'm a doctor.
For sure, yeah. So last question, each of you got to do the Pendle. Talk to us about what did it feel like? Did it help you in talking to the folks, and was it fun?
Absolutely. I would say the Pendle, so we were trained on it for a month before we actually put any participants on it. Dr. Alsmar made sure of that. We also trained similarly on the Dari. But the Pendle, I feel like it's literally like an adult swing. It's what it is. So like if you were that kid who like enjoyed being on the swing when you were like in the park when you were a child, you'll enjoy this too.
Yeah.
It's very similar, except it has so many exercise benefits. It's designed in a very specific way by the founder.
Yeah.
It's been used in clinical applications for low back pain. Now it's been used for shoulder pain, and I think there's so many different implications for it going forward. And yeah, it's just fun to like bounce around on.
Besides it was fun, did you feel the difference it made? Could you understand like how to express that to your patients?
Well, I can go first. After the first time I used it, like, it really challenges your core and stabilizing muscles. So I was like sore. Like I work out on a daily basis, but still like the Pendle took that a step further.
Cool.
So,
Fatima?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's unlike anything like I've ever been on before. It definitely does. You get sore after you're on it for the first time if you're not used to it.
But it works. All right, well, thank you so much for your perspectives, and we're glad you had this great learning opportunity. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. Thanks to all our guests, and thank you for watching.